I have 8 random questions here. You
Yep.
get 3 rolls on the tower, and whatever questions you roll, that is where we start.
Do I have to keep it within the... Oh, I roll it down. It's like Plinko.
Yes, it is
Hell
like
yeah.
Plinko. All right,
One.
number 1. Oh, you got a big one to start here. This one is called high-low. I want an audition high, and then also not necessarily an audition low, but just something you learn from an audition
Yeah.
that then you could apply to future auditions.
I like audition lows. I like talking about audition lows because
Okay.
I think that we all experience them and they're like shameful, but you gotta do it.
You'll notice this about me very, very quickly. I'll find a way to talk about something negative, but manage to put a positive spin on my
great.
question every time.
But we'll go there. Audition high, my goodness. Oh, I guess like I did a movie when I was a kid. I was like 17. It was a very scary audition for me because I think I had to fly from Regina to Edmonton to audition for it, which was a huge thing. It was a horror movie called Ginger Snaps Unleashed. And I dyed my hair for it because I was trying not to look like the lead woman who was already cast. And it was like a producer-director session. So I got to really like work for kind of the first time in my life. So that's like a high. And then a low. Okay, there's so many lows. But I lost myself a part once because I asked to audition for it. It was a Shakespeare movie. And I was like, I've never done Shakespeare. You should definitely audition me for it because you don't know if I can do it. So the director auditioned me. Turns out I can't do it. He was like, 2 weeks later, they were like, they've taken the part away.
They had offered you the part?
I had the part and I lost it. It's okay. It's okay. We found out the truth.
So would you ever want to try Shakespeare?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
I feel like you could do anything.
I don't know.
I feel like in the audition setting, handing someone sides and needing to master that kind of dialogue is really scary, but I feel like...
Well, it's also like something people train for.
Yeah, exactly.
For like their whole career. Like people become masters of it. So I think like me doing one audition maybe isn't indicative of what we could do if we worked on it for 4 years.
I'm just going to sit here impatiently waiting for you to do a Shakespeare adaptation now. I want to see it because I believe it can happen.
I feel like there was a time when Shakespeare adaptations like 10 Things I Hate About You. Wasn't that Shakespeare?
Oh, yes.
Oh, no, wait, that was it. It was Taming of the Shrew, right?
Yes, Taming of the Shrew.
I mean...
There was another one that just popped into my mind
one
from that time period that now I can't grab onto.
Was Clueless?
It is Clueless, isn't it?
Wasn't Clueless one of those?
Taming of the Shrew, and it's going to come to me after.
She's All That. Was it She's All That? No, it's not.
I don't think She's All That. I think it's Clueless.
She's All That had some like deep historical roots in literature.
She's All That also completely shaped the person who I am today.
Same here.
I was 13 and I took my glasses off and I'm oh, I'm a person now. That's not true. I am fine with glasses.
Do you still feel like you wear glasses? I feel like I still wear glasses even though I'm not wearing them right now. I still like a put out, I'm wearing glasses energy.
I truly have grown. I think I realized this the second I put contact lenses in, that I could see better and feel more comfortable with the lens directly on my eye, if that makes sense. Like whenever I put my glasses on, I don't see as clearly, so I purposely only put them on right before bed.
I know, I always feel, I'm so sorry. I always feel like I'm slightly behind something, like there's a veil.
Yeah, no, I get
can't be
that.
as present with people.
Now that I only wear them right before bed, I feel like it's also trained my mind to think that when the glasses are on, you are sleepy.
Sleepy time.
So now I can't wear them anywhere else.
Or if you're sick, you don't put the contacts in because you're sick. So it's like sick or asleep.
I might still put them in when I'm sick.
You do?
I mean, I like to force myself to get going a little bit.
Do you ever put makeup on when you're sick?
That I won't do.
I sometimes do it.
Really?
Yeah, I just try to like
Next time I get sick, I'm going to be sitting there like struggling to put my makeup on. I'm like, maybe this is better than medicine.
Totally.
All right.
Yeah.
One more. Two more rolls. That was the first one.
We didn't even get.
All right, we got number 5. You're getting all my meaty acting questions here. So this one's called favorite, least favorite. I want to know your single favorite part of the acting process, like meeting your co-stars, finding your character, whatever it may be, and then not necessarily your least favorite, but just a part of the process where you still see room to grow for yourself.
My favorite part of the process is the moment when you're on set or on stage or whatever it is, or even in rehearsal and you're working with your scene partner or the director or whatever, and you find something that you didn't expect. There's like a locking into, it feels like a leveling into, a deepening into something where you're like, oh, I'm in a flow state that I'm not predicting what's going to happen, but I feel at ease and like I'm finding something. It's hard to describe, but it can happen in rehearsal or anytime, or maybe on take 5 or maybe on take 1 or whatever. It's like, it's kind of elusive. It's like the thing I'm always trying to search for. And then the hardest part for me is the confidence of day 1. I don't have it. I feel very much like I'm coming into something. Like, it's very rare for me to be like, I got this. I'm always like, whoa, I don't know that I can do this. Sleep the day before is very hard. The night before. Yeah.
Oh, I get that. I'll follow up briefly. Is there any particular project you remember where, like, the first day you stepped on set and you're just like, I'm ready to go. I got this.
No, really no. Like there's always like I don't know if other actors relate to this or anybody who does like freelance work, but like there's like 3 days off the top where I'm like, they're gonna fire me. They realize they made a horrible mistake. Oh my God. That thing is quieted slightly, but it's still there.
Okay. Mm-hmm. No, I get it. I'm thinking about every time I moderate something and I step out and I do my intro, my first question, I'm like, oh God, they regret hiring me now.
Oh yeah, but so
and
you're doing
fine.
A truncated version of it. You're going from like, you're doing like the 4 weeks of production,
Honestly,
but in
I can't
4
tell
minutes.
if that's better or worse.
It's intense.
It is intense.
But isn't it like that, the high of the tension of being like, maybe this is wrong, to, oh, I think I'm landing in it, is so addictive. That's probably why we do it.
When you feel like you've landed or you've gotten into that right rhythm and you can just feel everything clicking.
Yeah, totally.
It's truly one of the best feelings ever.
And I imagine it has a lot to do with connecting, right? Like with the other person's energy is probably in those first couple minutes as kind of like, oh God, I'm on stage or I'm whatever I'm talking about. I'm
so true.
Speaking publicly, right? Like we're all kind of, like we were talking about the red
I
carpet
imagine
thing.
it's like the same thing with acting too. It's like, I always have to remind myself that it's not always like 100% on me. It's like sometimes you're either vibing with a person or you just have different energies and that's fine.
Totally.
But it's not always going to be that kind of like pitch perfect feeling.
No, of course. And maybe what you're reading in the other person is what you're actually feeling too. You know what I mean? Maybe you're taking on their nerves or their resentment of having to whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like you can, I think as like a porous person who's about connecting, it's hard to not be codependent.
Oh, I relate to that too much. All right. Final roll hour. I'm so curious to see if you get one of my sillier ones. Oh, yes. I'm so
Is it a
happy with
goof?
This one. It is a goofy one. This is one of my favorite questions about acting.
Yeah.
I want you to name like a seemingly small everyday thing that human beings do that is most difficult to replicate believably on screen. Like something like fake sneezing, fake waking up, fake driving.
I think the way that we speak with our partners in a language that is just your own and doesn't, from the outside, if you looked in, you'd be like, what are they saying? And why is this funny to them? I think the like subtlety of inside jokes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And maybe that's also like a writing thing, but it's also like, and a second thing I think is really hard, and I like name this every time I'm hanging out with friends who are also actors. I'm like, if somebody put on camera the volume and intensity at which we're speaking, it would come off as too big. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think everybody's like very used to like dropping everything to be an actor, as opposed to like in life, like right now, this is too big. Do you know what I mean? To put on, it's too big to put on camera.
Huh.
But that kind of thing, like the expressiveness of real life.
That's interesting. And also the subtlety thing is, like, that's one of the things about a performance that can impress me most, especially when it has to be like an intimate relationship that has years worth of history behind it, but I only get to experience 90 minutes of their lives, when I could like feel the weight of that history just by like a shared connection and how they deliver dialogue to each other.
Totally. And where they're not trying to convince you that they love each other, it's all okay, because we don't do that every day in our private. We just know it.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a new edition of Collider Ladies Night, one that I'm very excited about. I'll tell you a little why I'm excited about it. Tatiana Maslany is here. I feel like one of the very first things that made me feel like, I don't know, I was like standing on somewhat stable ground in this industry is Orphan Black. Because it was truly one of the very first things that I ever covered regularly, where the outlets that I worked for knew that I was into it and they would come to me for work.
Oh, cool.
And it meant
you
a lot.
had like an insight, or like you had a connection to it that made the work.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I was very into it, and I would go through like all the details. I'd rewatch every episode over and over.
Oh my God.
And it's just like defining experience for the beginnings of my career.
I feel similarly.
What is the movie you saw, the performance you saw, personal experience you had, whatever it may be, that first made you say to yourself, I have to be an actor?
There were so many of them. I think the first one that I made in my consciously was when I was like 20, and a friend of mine gave me A Woman Under the Influence, and that I'd been acting already for 11 years, 12 years, but as a kid, you're just sort of doing it to play and to like. There was so little consciousness around it, even though I was still like very into craft. I didn't have a sense of why I wanted to be an actor, and her and Jenna Roland's performance in that movie was like, oh, the possibilities are endless. The way the depth and the heights and the hugeness and the subtlety and the weirdness that she's able to bring to that character, and it just was like, oh, this is the. And the effect it was having on me, I was like, this is the depth of the possibility of what this art form can be.
I've had so many people reference that movie for this particular question, and I think it's one of the coolest things that someone's body of work can spark that passion in so many incredible artists that we know and watch now.
Yes,
coolest
totally.
thing ever. So you hit a point where you decide, I want to be a professional actor. Mm-hmm. At that point, what did you think was step one to turning that dream into a reality? And having done it, would you recommend that as a first step to another aspiring actor out there?
I don't think kids need to be actors. I think I was very lucky to get to do it a lot as a kid, but I think there's something complicated about children working with adults and having that level of pressure and getting a paycheck. Like all of that stuff is so mired in stuff, crap. So I think my favorite part of growing up as an actor was doing like community theater, doing improv. I did improv in school. I did improv outside of school. I did improv with my friends in a park. I did improv with my friends on our home video cameras. Like that thing of like just like needing to express, I guess eventually was like it could extend out into needing to audition or needing to make work or whatever it is. But yeah, the professional thing, I was so unaware. It was so just like I was just a kid and I just got a part. You know what I mean?
I have so many follow-up questions. That first thing that you said about, just being a kid and stepping into this, adult-run business, it was something that you had said this. I read like every single interview. This is probably like 10 years ago, but you were talking about your parents' influence on the earlier days of your career and just like the kind of support that they gave you. And I wrote this quote down. They were really protective of me in that way and gave me a really good work ethic and a really good reality grounding because this industry is so fucked.
Yeah.
I had two questions I jotted down about that one. So can you give me an example of an early experience where you realized this industry is fucked and tell me something that your parents instilled in you that helped you overcome that in a positive manner?
There was a scene in a movie, was intense. It was a scene, I was a kid when I made this movie, and there was this big scene where all these women are touching themselves in a dream sequence. And I was very young, and I was like, I'm not comfortable doing that. And I was also not comfortable even like advocating for myself. I was so young. And my mom stepped in and said, she's not going to do this part if you make her do this. And that's pretty incredible. I think having advocates for you when you're that age to protect you is like so helpful. Not parents that are like, you're going to lose this job and so you have to do this. My parents were always like, it's not worth doing something you don't want to do. And I think that is like a hard thing to learn because I think as actors, you want to be open, you want to be dexterous, you want to be like brave and fearless. And that can sometimes lead you to being exploited.
I don't like hearing that, but I like that you had your mom in your corner to kind of move that idea forward a little. I do ask this question every once in a while, and that kind of pertains to it quite nicely. Do you remember the very first time as like an adult in this industry that you kind of felt the power of your own voice, a time when you spoke up and changed something either on screen or behind the scenes for the better?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a growth in that because I think because I've come to feel like part of my currency is being brave and being up for whatever. Orphan Black was a lot of that. Was like, oh, you want me to do this? Okay, I'll do this. You want me to do this? I'll do this. And there have just been a few times, and I won't even like name what the productions were necessarily, but where there was like a safety concern. And I realized that the safety concern was impacting more than just me. If I wasn't being taken care of as number one on the call sheet, I knew that the crew was being taken care of even less than that. And that if it was just a stark reminder of that kind of weird hierarchy of like protection that can happen. Or, you know, who's the what's the word? The commodity. So I took myself out of a situation and stopped us filming something because I was like, if I'm not being protected right now, nobody is. And that was really hard because it's like saying no to a huge machine that is churning and that wants to get its day and blah, blah, blah. And I had a support in like other people on set, a couple crew and a couple like actors who were on my side, and knowing that it was about more than just me, because filmmaking is that, you know, was really helpful. And that's something I'm continuing to learn how to do.
Such a good, like, sense of awareness for a number one on a call sheet to have, because it's like the trickle-down effect and setting the tone and, like, tone in terms of, like, positive vibes but also safe vibes. That's super important there.
Yeah.
So the other follow-up I had, because in that other answer you brought up improv. Do you remember the very first time you realized that like improv was a style of performance that spoke to you and that kind of filled you up creatively?
Well, when grade 4 or 4th grade, as we call it here, there was okay. So I grew up in Canada, and in Canada we have this thing that's like French improv. I was in an immersion school.
You speak like a million languages, don't you?
I don't. I speak terribly a few, or like slightly a couple.
Way beyond me.
Yeah,
you can speak her like one language. Like, all right, sometimes.
You're doing great.
Oh, thanks.
My mom is a translator, and so she's fluent in French, German. She can speak Russian and Ukrainian, a little bit of Russian, Ukrainian, and then like Spanish and everything. Anyway, so she instilled in that in us early, and she put us in French immersion. And in French immersion, there's a thing called like French improv. I don't think that's what it's actually called, but that's what we called it. And you would do this kind of improv that was like it had to be within this certain, like it's like sports, basically. It was like theater sports. And we had, you know, teams that we would compete against like other elementary schools. And you'd get a theme, a style of performance, and the amount of time the scene was. You get like 20 seconds to confer with what you were going to do, and then you'd go up and like do the scene. And then teachers would like judge it. But that was like, that was my intro to improv in like a competitive or performance sense, where other people were watching it, where it wasn't just me and my brother back in our house in the living room forcing our parents to sit down and watch us do stuff. But that is like the I guess like I think of it as an art form that like has stayed with me the most in that and dance, but like that big time is like part of all of my work.
Ooh, I have a follow-up to that, but I was just thinking, like, you're explaining that complicated, like, in 4th grade, doing that kind of complicated improvisation where you're speaking another language, thinking of myself in college trying to fulfill my 4-semester language requirement, and there was always like, I was good at, like, memorizing words and, like, acing a vocabulary test, but whenever they would do, like, an oral report where you would have to, you know, get up and give your report, and then you field questions from your classmates, I would memorize the oral report, and then I wouldn't wouldn't know how to say anything else. So I would just repeat sentences from that report when they would ask me questions because I didn't know what I was talking about.
That's terrifying.
Yeah,
that's
no,
like
it was not fun.
when language really, I think, soaks in when you're in that survival. And you realize, like, oh, right, to communicate. The point is to communicate.
Yeah, I'll pat myself on the back for trying, but that just did not compute
oh my
up
God,
here.
Of course.
So you just brought up that improv has kind of stuck with you all throughout your work. Can you give me maybe like another acting technique or any random thing you've tried more recently for the very first time?
Yes. Whoa, for the very first time. Oh, you know what? I just worked with my best friend Tess, who's also in The Monkey. She wrote a short film that was directed by an amazing director named Kelly McCormick, who's also an incredible actor. And the short is stylized in a way that I'd never worked in that style before. It sort of feels throwbacky and sort of harkens back to an earlier style of performance than what we're used to. I think nowadays everything is like thrown away and there's a lot of like embarrassment around performance. And this was very much about performance. And so finding myself, it was like there's elements of clown that Tess is doing in it. There's elements of, like kind of Italian cinema, like just sort of living within that structure. And it was a short film, but it really challenged me and challenged pushed me past what I'm comfortable with. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was super fun.
I also love that like you're working short films into your filmography. I feel like that's so important. And I mean, to be frank, we don't pay enough attention to short films ever.
No, I know, but they're
and the risks you can take with them that you can't take with a feature.
Yeah, and you can experiment with your voice, and it gives artists like a chance to try something on a smaller scale, so that you can kind of like see how sets work, and like I think it leads you to being able to make features, which are very hard.
Yes. So hard.
Yeah.
Tried once and then I'm like,
Did
never
you?
again. Yeah. I went to film school and then when I graduated, I produced a film for a director friend who is like, he's really talented.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm really proud of what we just did. But you know what? I like sitting here and celebrating other people's hard work and not doing the hard work myself.
No, I gotcha. Yeah.
Oof, movies are tough to make.
Yep.
All right. Let's get into some specific titles now. I always love asking about the experience of having breakout moments on Collider Ladies Night. And I wanted to tackle it with you from two different angles here. First, I wanted to bring up the Breakthrough award you won at Sundance with a grown-up movie star.
Yeah.
When that happened, at the time, what are some things that you wanted to do, I guess, to kind of capitalize on a win like that? Mm-hmm. And how did what happened after compare to maybe the expectations that winning something like that set?
Well, I think that's the big thing is that there's a lot of people who are telling you have to capitalize on it. You have to get with a big agency. You have to da-da-da-da. There's like you're on, what is it? You're not on fire, you've got heat or whatever. And it's this weird industry created sort of thing where whatever. I don't, momentum. I don't really buy it because when you're inside of it, you're still just audition. You're still the same artist that you always were. You're still just figuring it out. Like, just because the industry now like gives you a different market value doesn't necessarily equate always with how you feel about your own work or whatever. Like I think what was so amazing about that was that I really loved that movie. I was so grateful to get to do that movie. I felt like in the making of it, I was really challenged. And then to have it like recognized was so beautiful. But then afterwards, there's all this noise on top of it that sort of takes away from like, I don't know. It becomes about something different, and then you feel like, did I capitalize on it? Did I do enough with it? Blah blah blah. And I just remember like there have been a lot of moments where those things have happened, and then I haven't worked for a while, or I've lost jobs, or jobs have gotten canceled, or whatever. And it's like, I think a lot of actors look to those things, and they definitely do get you in rooms, but we're all, the thing that like the strike really drove home to me, we're all in the same fight. We're all, we all struggle with the next level of things or whatever, or like working with the people that we want to work with or doing the kinds of projects we want to work with. It doesn't matter what level you want. There is another echelon that I'm not even talking about. But like working actors, I think what was so beautiful about the strike is there was so much solidarity and you felt, oh, we're not in competition with each other. And I think what things like awards do is they put you in competition with your peers and they make you all hungry for this thing that you're elusively trying to get. And it's such bullshit. And has nothing to do with what we do. It's a whole other realm. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows that I cover award season extensively, but I struggle with that kind of thought too because it's very real. I don't think this industry should be a competition, but I also love sitting there and celebrating someone who has done exceptional work and maybe deserves to be handed a statue.
Yeah.
I'm curious with that mentality, what was it like for you going on the Emmy circuit? I believe one win, but like multiple nominate and like the CCA win the first time around with Orphan Black. How did being honored in that way maybe contribute to how you feel about all this now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely gave me like a little bit of confidence, but it also feels discordant because I'm like, well, there's so many factors that go into making a performance. There's, like on Orphan Black, there was, why did I put the emphasis there? I don't know why. But there's the hair makeup team, the costumes team, where we're building these characters and we're differentiating these characters. There's all of the writer's room that is fine-tuning the voices of those characters. So when I see them on the page, they resonate as that character, and there's my amazing double on Orphan Black, Catherine Alexandri, who is doing all of the work and never gets seen and never gets any credit. And there's the editors who cut it together and make it coherent because, my God, we've seen movies where it doesn't work. And maybe that's down to, there's so many elements that comes down to. So I think it's like, and I'm sure this is also from my parents and just like their work ethic and not buying into Hollywood or whatever, or like feeling any connection to it, is like there's just so much more interesting stuff happening in the collaboration that isn't about singling out one person to, you know what I mean? Like Jenna Rollins didn't win the Oscar the year of the, but that doesn't matter. It's not like there were so many incredible performances.
Look at the lasting impact the performance still had.
Totally, like life-changing.
I've so sometimes people notice I do this. Like I'll count all my follow-up questions so I can try to remember them all. I had 3.
Yeah.
The first one does kind of go against what we've just been talking about, but I am curious if you ran the Oscars and had the opportunity to add one category for like an undervalued position on a set, what would it be and why?
It was like the PAs, like honestly, like the people who are there, or like the like trailer ADs who are there from 4 a.m. standing outside in the freezing cold if you're working in Canada, and then leave at the end of the day after everyone has been wrapped. And they're coordinating all of the cast. They're making sure that people are there in time. They're coordinating hair, makeup, like all of that. I mean, I don't know how you would even like substantiate that. Like, but there's so many jobs on set that, like, anytime I've had a friend or my parents come to set, they're like blown away by how many people are there. Like
coolest thing ever.
Donk. Sorry, I'm really fighting
we've
this
done
mic.
it. I've been very guilty of that.
Yeah,
this is why I'll take this opportunity to shout out my wonderful editor who just like brilliantly stitches this together to make us all sound like pros on this show, and also to make sure the audio is pitch perfect even when we bump the mics.
There you go.
I feel like I've forgotten one of those questions that I thought of before, but another one I had just because we're bringing up Orphan Black, and I'm going to oversimplify this, but I'm just curious, do you have, like, I guess any particular buttons you would push in a way to turn on and off each of those characters that maybe still stick with you? Yeah.
Oh, for sure. For Helena, the like Ukrainian psychopath with a heart of gold, I remember first discovering her voice by singing in the accent, singing Tom Waits's Alice album. There's a song called Everything You Can Think of Is True. Or Everything You Can Think of, I think. And that song, for some reason, allowed me to find... So I would listen to a lot of... and sort of sing Tom Waits to myself with her. Because he also just feels like the kind of critter that she would, live in that same world. And what else? Sarah, it's a lot of music stuff, but for Sarah, it was like putting on Prodigy and putting on The Streets and rapping along to The Streets, because his voice is so like kind of cartoony Cockney almost, like he's really playing with it. So I think like leaning into that was really helpful. Cosima was like dancing, always dancing. Rachel was watching Anna Wintour interviews.
Makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. And what else I got? Allison was just being my goddamn self. Letting her rip.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Oh, man, it's just bringing me back. You worked with the best. You work with the best people in general, I've got to say. There's a lot of really cool people that you've crossed paths with that, I mean, I'll bring this up when we talk a little more heavily about the monkey, and I'll use your words from the junket for this, but the idea of just creating these filmmaking families of unique weirdos. I'm pretty sure those were the words that you used.
Yes.
I myself am a unique weirdo, and I feel like I feel those vibes radiating off the screen in those projects, and also when I've bumped into some of your castmates since Orphan Black, I'm oh, that's why I like the show so much.
Are you talking about Christian?
Christian, I have I have a good story with Christian because we covered Ready or Not quite heavily.
I love that movie.
Christian and I were given crossbows and brought to like a sword play thing, and they hung up posters, and the two of us like battled shooting crossbows.
Yes.
I still have my crossbow.
Oh my God, you have a crossbow?
With no arrows. They gifted it to us at the end. I'm pretty sure he has a crossbow too.
He's never offered it up.
I mean, I don't know if you want it, but I saw Jordan at Sundance, and he's got quite the movie that played there called Touch Me. And I swear, this was before we even spoke for the monkey, obviously, but that whole team brought up the fact that, like, we are all weirdos, and we are all weirdos that belong together. I'm so happy to see you all thriving. All right, before I get into the monkey full force, I had a couple of She-Hulk questions.
Okay.
First one is about signing on for something like that. When you sign on for a project that isn't just one film or like one TV show, it's connected to this whole universe and it comes with a whole lot of pressure and maybe like a contract where you have to commit to multiple projects. How does that make you rethink what you need to see in the project to ensure it's going to be creatively fulfilling for you?
That's a great question, and I don't know really. I that size of thing was always something that I like avoided even thinking of doing, because it just wasn't, it felt so big and it felt so enormous to make a decision like that. But I think what ultimately the script and my meeting with Jessica Gao before the audition was like, oh, she's so funny. She's so interesting. I'm like so curious about her take on this character. I feel like she and I can like build something really interesting, and like we have a similar sense of humor. And that just became more and more apparent as I was like working on the project, that she was like the thing. But yeah, it was like reading the pilot. I was like, oh, this is so funny. And it was actually a different pilot than the order that the series came out in. But I was like, oh, this is so funny and so not a superhero thing. It feels like I can like find my way into this. I also found interest in the idea of, and we sort of got into this in the series, but like the idea of like inhabiting a body that makes people talk to you differently, respect you differently, treat you differently, objectify you. What does that do inside to how you feel about yourself? Where does that instill confidence? Where does that detract from how you know yourself to be? You know, like when do you start performing what people expect? And I think that was also like tied in with like, oh, if I'm taking on this part, I'm sort of embodying that in the world too. I'm like stepping into something that's bigger than me, that I don't know that I am that. I don't know that I can fill that out. People are going to be looking at me and saying things and deciding things and based on, you know what I mean? Like there's something about it that felt very meshed in with my feelings about even stepping into it.
Yeah, I can understand that. So the other question I jotted down kind of ties into that, and I got to be like a little blunt about it because I watched this happen and it shattered my heart into a million pieces, and it's done so with a lot of recent franchises, specifically shows and films that are maybe more female focused.
Yeah.
What was it like for you separating the art you made from not the entire fan reaction? Because there's a lot of wonderful Marvel fans that I've had so many like beautiful and constructive and important conversations with. Yeah. But there is no denying the fact that that show sparked an absolutely vile response in some corners of that fandom. What is the key for you to kind of put up a shield and still embrace the good you did and block all that out?
Thank you for that. Like that's so sweet of you. I feel that. Thank you very much. I don't know because it's still like to this day. Mm-hmm. To this day, my comments on my Instagram back 40 weeks ago, they like to go in all over there. But for me, it's really it's. What's so exciting is that Jessica Gao knew that was going to happen. She wrote it into the show. So like there's something in She-Hulk that is looking out and she's aware of the camera. She's aware of somebody watching her. There's something about the inherent, quality to that character that is self-aware and that understands her place within the MCU or within a series or a TV show or a scene or whatever. Just like Jennifer Walters is aware of her place within the like legal system and like how she's struggling as a woman to be taken seriously or to be respected. There's just so many things. There's so many more interesting things that I can like look to than a sort of vitriolic fan response where people don't like it or just want to be mean and sort of like use you as like a dumping ground for their worst thoughts. But the thing that, again, like you're saying, there are people who I meet at conventions who are like, I love that show, or I've been reading She-Hulk since I was a kid, and that's exactly what the story of the show is exactly what she was like. And that to me is like, yeah, you just remember that stuff. And then, you should work through it. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a constant thing.
Again, my heart breaks that anybody in this industry has to work through things like that. But I'm glad you find the good at those conventions because I know there's a lot of good in those spaces.
Totally.
And your convention footprint is about to grow because you also got Star Trek now.
I did.
That just makes me happy. I feel like I don't even know what to ask about that. I'm especially excited for Starfleet Academy because one of my favorite young actors on the rise, Carice Brooks, is in it.
Oh my God, I love Carice.
The best energy ever.
Have you talked to Carice?
Many a time.
Yeah. Carice is unbelievable. The whole cast, the whole set is people like not like Carice. Carice is like obviously very unique with it.
Kind.
Like no one's like Carice. But like everyone is such a great character. There's so much heart in the show. Like I had such a blast working on it. Holly Hunter is my hero. I couldn't believe I got to work with her. Broadcast News is again like one of those performances that just like beyond. Like Paul Giamatti is a total delight. Like it was just, and it's opened up to me the Star Trek universe, which I knew the original series. I'd seen some of the movies. My husband's a big Trekkie, and so he and I watched like Wrath of Khan and stuff like that during COVID. But now I'm like going back and I'm watching like Deep Space Nine, and it's like my husband refers to it as like my stories because I'll be like sitting in the tub with like my laptop, just like oh no, like responding and like laughing or being like, like he's like, it's like my soaps. Like I love it so much, and it has something to say. Mm-hmm. It's saying so. It's not a one-to-one about anything, but it talks about things in a way that you can like feel this like catharsis of like watching shows that have a moral compass. While also being like, that guy's a shapeshifter who literally becomes a liquid form and goes into a bucket every 16 hours. And he's my dream man, and I love him so much. It's the best. It's the best.
I love it. I can't wait. I'm so excited for all of it. I'm so excited for Carice getting her first
I know.
big thing too.
Yeah.
I can't wait. All right. The Monkey.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'm just like utterly obsessed with. I need to like stop watching your movie, but it's so rewatchable. I keep saying it's like a cross between Stephen King and Final Destination, which is two of my absolute favorite genre things.
Oh, no way.
I feel like that combination made this movie exactly what I needed in that adaptation. Yeah. So I want to go back to the unique weirdo thing first, because I do think one of the most important things in this industry is finding your people.
Yeah.
You made Keeper before you made The Monkey with Oz. Do you remember the very first moment on the Keeper set when you looked at Oz and also the people he liked to work with and said, like, these are my weirdos, I belong here?
I mean, I remember in the costume fitting working with Micah Cade, who is a genius, and she and I were like finding the character, and that felt really like, oh yeah, this is so fruitful and so energizing. But then like also on set, I remember there was one scene that we were about to shoot and we were blocking it, and I like sat in the corner kind of like this. And the scene, by all accounts, should have been us walking around. But Oz was like, great, stay there. And then we tried the scene from this like bizarre blocking that wasn't what was written. And that's what ended up being. And I was like, oh, he's like so here. Like we're so here in this is the moment that we're like making the movie right now. We didn't make the movie 2 months ago in our brains. It's like it's alive right here. And it meant that there was no like pushing. It didn't have to like, my body wanted to do this thing and he was like, that's exactly right. You know what I mean? And I don't know why that is like revelatory, but it really is. Just like, yeah, when the present moment is the thing that we're capturing.
It's interesting because we always talk about these being massive productions, and in order to pull these impossible things off, you have to have everything planned to a T.
Yeah.
But then it's about finding that happy medium between being planned and ready to go, but also being able to embrace moments like that and find like the new life on the spot.
Totally.
Do you have an example of that happening on the set of The Monkey as well?
Yeah, on The Monkey, I mean, even just like there were just certain things that I don't know. I don't even know what that would have been on The Monkey. His like trust in me playing this like character that felt very important to the movie and also to him, and his like I don't know, there's something about the language of the movie that feels kind of nostalgic. So getting to play in that rhythm was really interesting, and he always like urged me forward to keep exploring that way. It's like hard to kind of pin down what it is when you're working with somebody who you like jam with. But I think it's just that there's like the ideas aren't bad or good. They're just ideas. So there's no like, oh, I got it wrong or, oh, I got it right. It's just like, oh, we found something together, you know?
I feel like it's difficult, like even from the viewer perspective, it's difficult for me to pin down anything with Oz. I feel like it can go in any which direction at any second, and that's part of the reason why I keep coming back to his films. Yeah. Something you just said made me think of something else I had written down. Oh, it was how personal your character is to Oz. And in our production notes, he says this about you, to have someone who is playing my mom, or at least what I feel about my mom, it seemed like getting truly one of the best actors I've ever beheld. I love that. Such a beautiful statement. But from your perspective, what is it like for you playing a character that has such a deeply personal connection to the person directing you?
Yeah, I mean, I was like scared of that weight, but also he's written her so clearly on the page, and like doing any research of my own just in terms of like collecting little ideas. It just felt there was never like get it right and do it like this, because she's written so specifically. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that, except that it's like, yeah, it's like an honor to get to play that part. And also like the honor wasn't the thing. It was like she's so funny and she's so kind of odd and off and also direct with her kids. And like there's so many other things to play. But the idea of her being a mother that we're looking at like through the kids' eyes was a helpful in. So whether it's looking at her through Oz's eyes, but also looking at her through Hal and Bill's eyes, who was she to them? You know, what did she mean to them? Why is her loss so devastating? You know, all of that stuff. And what lessons has she given them?
The way you were just describing her is making me think of this. And it could also kind of lean into what you were explaining earlier in Ladies' Night about like on day one, not necessarily feeling sure. Do you remember the very first moment on set when you feel like you got the tone? And specifically when it comes to kind of what you were teasing before, the idea of, like, I feel like she exudes like warmth and love for her boys, but then there's also these points where like she's harsh about the reality of the world. And the fact that those two things can live together in your performance, I'm just so impressed by.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was because Oz said to me at one point in that like monologue about death, he was like, you're picturing death and you've pictured it before. You're picturing your own death and you've pictured it before. And it was like, oh, okay, I can actually be working through my own thing here. It's not only about mothering and being maternal. It's like also about facing it myself. So that was like a little, gift there.
That speech is just something else. I just there's many things in this movie that I can't quite get out of my head. That one is just like,
you know what's really weird I've noticed is that something about that direction made my face do the monkey's face.
Wait, what?
Like if you look at it, there's like an image where
now
I kind of like
the movie again.
They're like my sunglasses are blocking it a bit, but you could kind of. I was looking at it the other day. I was like, oh, because it's like now a GIF or whatever, and I was like, oh, that I look like the monkey.
Oh, I can't wait to go look this up.
Yeah.
I feel like
there's some Easter egg there. She is the monkey. I also asked Oz. I was like, I want to be the monkey.
I want a monkey.
I do too.
For the Chucky show, they sent us like actual Chucky dolls.
Oh my
and
God.
Chucky lived in the. I do this weird thing where I'll like unbox packages in the garage so I could throw the box away and not bring it into the apartment. So Chucky made his way into my passenger seat, and it was the greatest thing driving around LA traffic just to see like what the person's expression would be when they saw Chucky sitting next to me.
God.
But like I need a monkey next to my Chucky.
You do. You need a whole bunch of kids in the back there.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Good luck.
This is too on brand for me. This is a little more of a theory question, but it was something that I've been wondering on multiple viewings. If Hal and Bill had gone to their mother and been like, Mom, like we think this monkey is killing people, do you think she would have been receptive to that idea and believed them?
I mean, probably not. Probably not. That's not how it works, is what I think she would say. But also, I think also she just wants to get rid of all that crap that her husband brought home. It's just like a pile of crap. So if they don't like the monkey, great, let's toss it. Now you can clean out the closet. This is what Mama would have said.
It does make all the sense in the world.
She's like, I'm not dealing with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that does feel like how she'd play that card.
Yeah.
At this point, I want to put up the spoiler warning because I do want to talk about some of the really great effects. I was about to say something that would have spoiled it before the spoiler warning, but I did not do that. This is the point where we say goodbye if you have not seen The Monkey. It is in theaters right now, so push pause on this video, run out and see it on the big screen in a packed house, please. It is such a blast that way. And then come right back, push play, and the conversation continues in spoiler zone. Yeah. So I do really want to break down your death scene in every single way imaginable because I love horror movies and like my mind is just frequently blown by horror movie magic and what it takes to make stuff like that happen. So I guess can you kind of walk me through your particular death scene, both from the effects perspective and performance, because I feel like, I don't know, you could see the most gratuitous, scariest thing happen before your eyes, but it only has that gut punch if I can feel the emotional weight behind the actor giving the performance. And I feel that there.
Yeah, I feel like it's like it's a moment of vulnerability, like deep vulnerability for her. Something, because I think she's pretty matter of fact and pretty like in control of her other thoughts, feelings, etc. Annoyed by dates, annoyed by, you know what I mean? Like she's just sort of like above it. And that's where she's leveled completely. And there's another moment that's like maybe a flashback, maybe more just what Bill is imagining, where she actually like says goodbye. And that moment, I think Oz was also like, she knows she's never going to see him grow up. So it's like, again, like giving me a little gift of this, you know, imbuing it with something else. But the death scene. The death scene was very exciting. We had multiple costume changes just in case we needed to do it again, because I did get absolutely soaked. But it was practical. There was like a tube up my back, tubes coming out here in my sweet little hairdo. And yeah, it would like the timing of like shooting that off with the pop of the icing.
Oh, I don't cook or bake. Don't ask me that question.
Icing, what is it? It's a little...
Piping.
Piping?
Why did I know that?
Oh my God. Yeah, like that's just somewhere in your brain.
I'm going to clip this part out and send it to all my friends to be like, look, I know stuff.
Look. Now you're going to have to make cakes for them.
No, nobody wants me to make them a cake. I promise you that.
But like the timing of that kind of stuff, it's like when you're working with like any kind of effect or stunt, the feeling I get is like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like it's very exciting. It's very nerve-wracking. You want to get it right. You want it to all like kind of go off correctly, but also want to look surprised by it. So it's like everyone gets hyper present. And the effects team was so great. And then I think there was some digital effects that came in after to like amp it, because there's no unamped death in this movie.
That is for sure. So there's that death where they have kind of the practical blood, and then there's another scene. It's the one with like the mouth wide open and the blood pouring down the face, where I have to imagine that might be a little more visual effects heavy. Is there one form of that you find easier?
That was also some practical. So there was like, that's the cool thing about this movie, is that I could also feel that practical effect while I was doing that moment. My brother was like, it's so cool you got to do like a nightmare dream sequence in a movie. And I was like, totally. Like, it's like a dream. You know what I mean? It's like the kind of thing you like, you've seen in movies 1,000. Like it's an iconic thing to have that little like deflection, you know? But yeah, that was also really fun, just because, again, it was like, go balls to the walls, like, make it look as gruesome as possible. Even if you don't have blood pouring out of your eyes, you will.
It's so cool. It looks fun. So good. Yeah. As someone who just loves this genre.
Yeah, same.
The idea of like dreaming about having that like epic movie magic death scene is just like, my brain can't stop thinking about stuff like that.
Yeah, totally.
Final Destination and Scream. If anybody needs someone to die in your movies,
are those
in the future,
are those yours?
Those are like my go-to.
Yeah,
those are my
like
go-to.
Like a rewatch.
Yeah, I rewatch them all the time, and then. The older I got, when I realized reading wasn't just about studying in school, but it could also be quite fun, is when I started to read every Stephen King book I could get my hands on, and seeing how many Stephen King shorts are being I mean, it's always been like that, but it does feel like there's an especially like large amount that we're getting right now with Life of Chuck coming up.
Yeah.
And it just feels like there's a lot of like endless creative possibilities when you're taking a short story and you're honoring that short story, but you're also using it as an opportunity to like flex your own muscles as an artist. And we're seeing like Oz and Mike Flanagan, Rob Savage with The Boogeyman, like they're all doing it. And it's
so cool.
Filling my horror movie loving heart right now.
Did you ever read The Exorcist?
I never read The Exorcist.
It's awesome. Highly recommend. It's beautiful. Like, it's a beautiful read. It was like my first horror book that I ever read. And I was like, because I'm terrified of that movie. And I was like, but I feel like maybe I should read it. And because I was doing a horror play, and wanted to like kind of live in the world. It's really good.
I'm going to put that on the list.
You should. It's gruesome. Like, it's very gruesome.
I'm ready for it.
But it's kind of amazing. Yeah.
I just finished one called Clown in a Cornfield. They adapted it, and it's playing at South by Southwest. So I wanted to read it before I went there.
Yeah.
So now that I've finished that, I'm ready for the next thing. So I guess it will now be The Exorcist.
I think Jordan Peele also like like a not helmed a book, but like he like put together a collection of horror writers.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it came out a couple of years ago. My husband got it for me for Christmas, and it's
I feel like
fantastic.
I know exactly what you're talking about, too.
Yeah. Also worth shorts.
Yes.
We'll
Bring on the shorts. All right. I got to wrap with you soon. I'm going to end on two questions. One particular one is about Keeper, because I'm dying to know more. I know you probably can't tell me more. I also hate the way that I formatted this question because I don't think anything.
Read it exactly as it's written.
I just don't think anything about the way Oz's mind works is like linear in any sense. But the way that I wrote it is, where does Keeper fall on the scale of like the monkey to Longlegs? Like, sinister, nightmarish horror versus horror comedy.
Different world.
Yeah.
It's in its own little, that's what's great about Oz, is that it doesn't sit anywhere in either of those places. It's, I'm so excited about it. It was so exciting to watch that preview with an audience. Like, to see it up on the screen, I'm just, I'm very excited for people to see it.
I was about to say, it's just crazy we're getting 2 movies from him in a single calendar year. But then I remember, like, Longlegs also wasn't that long ago.
No.
3 movies in such a short span of time.
Relentless.
I'm glad to hear that because I want more.
Yeah.
So this is always the very last question of Ladies Night. It actually ties into some of what we were talking about before, because the idea came from the fact that in this business, we give each other awards. And again, I do think that is cool and we need to reward people in that way sometimes. But I find that nobody ever tells themselves good job as much as they should. So I want to know something you accomplished while making The Monkey that you know you'll always be able to look back on and say, you know what, I'm really proud of what I did there.
I think, like, for me, comedy is, for some reason, people are like, you can't do it. So it was very nice to get the chance to do it, and to do it in this way that felt very character-driven, very much, like, in line with, like, the kind of dream stuff that I want to work on. So I think it was nice to watch it with an audience and have them amused. That was fun. That was very fun.
Saw a number of reactions.
I'll be proud of that.
That would confirm they were very amused. I am a big believer that you are capable of anything.
Oh, thank you.
Even Shakespeare when the time comes. Bring it on.
Good luck.
I'm going to say big congratulations on everything you've accomplished on The Monkey and everything coming your way in the future.
Thank you.
Because sat here with you for hours. Come back to Ladies Night.
I would love to, and I'm going to roll the dice one more time.
Go for it. Do you want the question?
Yeah.
All right. I could do these all day long.
I'm taking a 4th question.
This is the award season question.
Oh, of course.
If you could put yourself in a nominated movie just to do one particular scene in it, what scene would you want to try?
I want to be able to do the type of dancing and acrobatics that young man, the young man did in Wicked in the library scene. You know, that young man.
Jonathan Bailey.
That's his name. I want to be that guy flipping around, because he did it so kind of confidently. I was like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Where did this, is this, I don't know anything.
He is incredible.
Well, yeah.
He's doing all these flipping like moves,
Yeah.
and on that rotating bookshelf. And the part of the performance that amazes me the most is that while doing all of that, he's also actually like turning the pages of the books with his feet. Like that wasn't some sort of like fake cutaway. Like he did that while he was dancing.
Like his little dexterous toes.
Yeah, like in the part where he's like flipping over the book covers and stepping on it.
He's turning pages?
Yeah, he's doing that himself.
My God.
Yeah, I know.
I guess that's what I want to do. I want to turn pages with my feet, monkey style.
Shakespeare and that, please. Bring it on.
Yeah.